Morning, everybody.
We're
We're already in our conversation before you even got here. We are live, and I actually didn't create an event this week because that was one of the things, Tracy, I noticed with the numbers. When I create an event, our numbers are actually lower, which is interesting because you would think that they would be higher. So we'll let you guys get used to the fact that we're online. We're going to talk about forgiveness this morning. I'm going to give you a couple of affirmations on forgiveness. So you might want to get a pen and a pad of paper. And we're all going to talk about probably a situation in our life where we've embraced forgiveness. And it's forgiveness and release, by the way. It's not just forgiveness. It's forgiveness and release. And this conversation is coming from a follower and a client, a follower of the show and a client, and who's also a friend. And this person is going through a divorce and had a court date yesterday, which actually got postponed. And I really do believe that God postponed the court date to give this person some extra time to work on forgiveness and release. And so we're going to basically do a little mini class on this, and then we're going to tell her to go and watch it. And it is actually probably going to benefit all of you in some way, because I promise you that everyone has something somewhere that occurred for them in their story that they are perhaps still holding on to. And what they don't recognize is that it is holding them back in a particular way. Good morning, Jody. Hi, Janet. So here's what happens when somebody does you wrong. You position yourself against them. Okay. So they cheat on you, they fire you, they take advantage of you, they steal your money, whatever they did, they whacked you, whatever it is, whatever happened. However far back it happened is how long you've been stuck, by the way. So what you do is first of all, you have to make up a way to survive that. So you become, someone inside yourself that you can survive, because sometimes people do things that are quite awful, and you do have to position yourself to be able to survive that. And I've had some of those things, happen to me. So I get that. And I've been divorced 2 times, by the way. And the 3rd time I finally got it right. And I've been hit, by the way, in case you didn't know that about me. And I have been all those things. So I know what it's like to have this conversation when you have something that you have strongly positioned yourself that someone did whatever, and you're right about that they did that. You're right about that. Okay. So I get all of that. So if you think I'm talking out my ass, I'm not. Not only did I have 2 divorces, but I also had a 12-year relationship where the person and I, were discordant, breaking up, getting back together, and he turned around and broke up with me and married someone else after knowing them for 3 months. And by the way, karma never loses an address, because 5 years later, that whole thing fell apart and blew up in his face. So you don't have to worry about teaching them a lesson, and you don't have to worry about wishing whatever on them, and you don't have to worry about any of that, because here's what's the law of attraction is a real thing. Whatever you put out will visit itself back to you times 10. Times 10. It will come to find you times 10. And karma never loses an address. You can't run away from the universal law. So please, when we're having this conversation this morning about forgiveness and release, don't tell me that you have to stay positioned against something so that you can pay them back. It's not your responsibility, okay? And your whole thing about paying them back or visiting something on them or fomping your animosity on them is only deterring you from getting where you want to go, okay? I promise you, and I'm 55, and I have seen karma visited on the people that did me wrong. I've seen it happen 7 times so far in my lifetime so far. All right. So I promise you, karma does not lose the address of the people that acted in a way that wasn't for the highest good of all concerned. So don't worry about that. Now, let's talk about you and the fact that you position yourself against whatever all that is. And because of that position, you are not living a fully authentic life, because a piece of you is positioned like concrete against whatever happened. And so you're going through your life, and maybe you're on a personal development plan, and maybe you're working on your own shit, and you forgot about the rotting fruit in the bottom of the refrigerator, which is the unforgiveness that you have about whatever. It could be your dead mother, God rest her soul. It could be your dead father, God rest his soul. It could be your grandparents. It could be your first husband. It could be your first wife, whatever, whoever. It could have been your second grade teacher. Who knows? Who cares? Honest to God, it doesn't even matter, because here's a couple things that are true. With any story, there's my version, there's that person's version, and there's what actually happened. And that's just the truth. Any psychologist will tell you that, okay? There's my version, how I remember it, how the other person remembers it, and then the actual facts of what occurred. So just know that however we have made up the story in our mind, it is our version of it. I'm not saying it's not true, because for us, it's very true. Those other people have their own version of it. And then there's actually what occurred. So you are, by holding on to something, somebody that left you, cheated on you, whatever the case may be, and you're carrying that sack around on your back, and it is keeping you from living fully in your life now, and it's keeping you from moving fully into your future. It's like, you know, when you drive your car and you set the emergency brake and you forgot, and then you're driving and the car's like not, and you're like, what the hell is happening? And you don't realize that your emergency brake is on. That's what unforgiveness and the inability to release people is. It's like you driving with your emergency brake on, and you can't figure out why you can't just go forward. Can't figure it out. Well, this morning we're going to tell you, check your friggin' emergency brake. Check in here and see, what am I holding on to? How many of you will tell us the truth this morning and drop in the comments that you have something that you're holding on to that you have not been able to forgive or release or let go of? Because I promise you there's something, right? And so here's the thing about forgiveness, and then Karen and Tracy are going to chime in. I'm not forgiving you for you. I'm forgiving you for me. I don't even have to talk to you to forgive you. I don't even have to like you to forgive you. And forgiveness is not an acknowledgement that whatever happened was okay, by the way. No. And forgiveness doesn't mean that I forgot that you're an asshole. No, I didn't forget. Forgiveness means, and release means, it's no longer going to occupy a space in my real estate. Okay? No. You are an asshole. Cool. You go be an asshole over there. But your ability to be an asshole is no longer going to affect my life. Because I bless you, I release you, and I let you go. And you know what? I know that whatever people put out into the universe comes back to visit them times 10. So you know what I ought to be worried about? This chick right here. I ought to be worried about her and what she's doing. I don't got to be worried about you, because that's your problem. But why should your behavior affect my life? You did whatever you did. Whatever happened between us happened. I'm out. I'm out. You showed me who you were. Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you that I didn't have to spend the next 50 years of my life with you, because you showed me in spades who you really are. Thank you. I'm out. I forgive you, I release you, I loose you, I let you go. All things are cleared up between us now and forever. That's a Catherine Ponder affirmation. That really works. I forgive you, I release you, I loose you, I let you go. All things are cleared up between us now and forever. Done and done. Now, the trick is, once you do this forgiveness and release work, you can no longer reserve the right to drag that bag from the past. You can't say, oh, I forgive you, I release you, I loose you, I let you go, thank you. And then I get off this thing and I call up Tracy and I'm like, that son of a bitch, you wouldn't believe. Okay, no. I forgive you, I release you, I loose you, I let you go. All things are cleared up between us now and forever. Done and done. Now the thought comes in my mind and I go, nope, I forgave you, I released you, I let this go. I'm moving on. Yeah. Trace, give us some perspective.
Yeah. Forgiveness keeps us stuck. There's an underlying conversation of fear in not forgiving. When you stand in a place of love, there are no grievances around you because you've forgiven. And then it allows you to be in a space of rejuvenation and salvation and transformation. But when you're holding on to something else, it's a constant reminder of what was or who you were. And that's another thing, Noelle, when you were just talking, the forgiveness of the self is just as important as forgiveness of others, because we can run a rampant in our head and not even know we're doing it. Yep. And make ourselves feel bad about what happened to us, where we came from, who left us, what we did, who we hurt, who we betrayed, what we said. Forgive all that. Forgive all that. And that's some deep, deep work, man. Yep. I'm talking, I don't know how many tears I've cried about all the wrongs that I did, right? And so then talking about karma, all the wrongs I did and the karma that came back to me through somebody else, I was like, what? And it helped me look at myself. It helped me say, oh my gosh, I helped create that mess. Like I was part of that. I was a biatch, man. No wonder why now I can learn about me. I can release me. I can become new in me. And it just, the space of love, it just overshadows any darkness that thinks it wants to rear its ugly head into your life, and to forgive and to release. The truth just resonates in you of who you are beneath all that junk. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. And it's not your job to remind them of what a schmuck they are. Right. Who's going to remind you of the schmuck you are, right? We don't want that. Right. We want to be forgiven too. Like if I ever wronged somebody, I would hope that they would say, I forgive you. It's okay. Let's hug and let's let that go. We're learning, we're growing, we're changing, and to be free.
And by the way, because you said hug and whatever, like if the person has passed already, you can still do this work. So you can still do the forgiveness and release work if the person passed, or if you never speak, if you never are going to speak to them again, because in some situations, this may be someone that you have no desire to hug or speak to or anything. And that's okay. Forgiving and releasing doesn't mean you have to like them. I just want to be clear about that. I mean, it's nice if you can, have a relationship moving forward. But it's not, it's not necessary for you to do this work. Is not predicated on that they are alive or that they are speaking to you or anything. This is work that you can do. Another great technique is writing a letter. If you have something you feel like you have to say before you can forgive and release, paper is a wonderful thing. Write it all down, take it to the kitchen sink, get a match and burn it. So don't, or I've given clients sometimes the assignment to go to the ocean and yell it and then let it go. So I am not saying to stuff things. I want to be clear about that. We are not saying stuff things. We are saying get it out, but don't foist your nastiness about the situation onto the person. Please just write it down, say it outside, in your car, whatever. Let it go. They don't need to be beaten up again for whatever it is that they did. Trust me, they've done a good enough job on their own, beating themselves up. And we know this because we've done it to ourselves. So go ahead, Karen. What about, or Tracy, did you have something else you wanted to add?
One more thing. So when we come from a place of need, and there's something that we need in our life, and we come upon somebody that brings us that need and fulfills that need, and then we glom onto it and we make it mean something and we make it become something. Okay. God, I'm a God girl. God will move that out of our way because it's not what's supposed to be happening. He will move it. Now, if I'm in a mindset of, oh, why did they leave me? What's wrong with me that they're not here? Because I was insecure in the first place. I had a need. They fulfilled my need when I should have been fulfilling my need. And for me, it's God. But he moves people. So you don't get to sit there and complain. Well, like, why? What's wrong with me? They left me. No, they were moved.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a quote last night that said, when God shuts a door, sometimes you should nail a board across it.
Yeah, I love it. Yes.
Believe me, in hindsight, that person that I was speaking about, by the way, we are now friends. We 5 years later, we did the forgiveness and release work with each other on the phone. And it was a beautiful thing because it was a 12-year, friendship and relationship. And so we're good now. And that person, he got to see karma visited on him and he got it. And I got to see that my life, wasn't supposed to be hooked to his. Yes. And I get that. Yes. And I saw that. And Tracy saw it because she happened to be here when he came. He came and met my current husband, and he came and apologized to myself and my son. I mean, it was a beautiful, thing. And that was years of me doing prayer work about it. And doing this release work too, accepting the apology that I never got. And then I got to get it 5 years later, and Tracy and I got to see when this person came here, we saw what happened to that person just in a lot of ways. And we both were like, wow, you dodged a bullet. Like, okay, God, I couldn't see it then, but I see it now. And thank you. So so when I'm speaking about this, I'm, like I said, I'm not talking about my ass here. I've had this happen. I've had to do it. When that first happened, I was brought to my knees, weeping for the way that it all occurred. And it was one of the worst things that has ever happened to me, except I just kept taking the high road. And, for those of you that walked with me during that time, how awful and vindictive those people tried to be. And it was, there was just a whole thing. So I know what I'm talking about, and I know how hard it is.
And also how to not revisit that relationship, right? But to also not revisit that conversation. Do not revisit that habit. Do not revisit that story. Do not revisit that anything that's back there that occurred way back there when you didn't know any better. Because now today you know better, and you're going to let that go. Do not revisit it. It's over. Like, you just keep running around in your head, and then you're stuck, and then you wonder why you're stuck, and you wonder why. Like, it is why it is, and why it's so hard to move forward. It's because you keep
it alive. Yeah. Every time you speak about it to somebody, and every time you think about it, you make it alive. Karen, what say you?
I worked CODA for over
me too
3 years. Yep. And a big part of it in that step study is making a list of people who have done you wrong.
Yeah.
Amends,
right? Making amends.
None of those people. And I had a list of well over 30. You write letters, you work with, for me, I worked with a sponsor and a step study group. But like, even if you don't go through CODA, just researching at least the framework of it is really important. Yeah. And releasing a lot of it. Like, I had a lot with my mother, and I talked to my mother every day, and I didn't need to have the conversation with her, but I needed to write the letters and let it go.
Yeah. That's actually a great point, Karen, because some people might need to do this forgiveness and release work with people that they have a current relationship with still. So say more about that, because that is actually a piece of this.
I needed to do a lot of release work with her, and I'm okay that I don't have to have the conversation with her, because it's for me, it's not for her. And if I have the conversation with her, it's not going to go anywhere.
But and it's going to hurt her, right?
Because hurt her, and that's okay because it was for me. Yep. I don't need to be like, you did this and you did that and you did this. No.
Right.
Yep.
No. Yep. We're going to go, because I'm going to go in circles with her over and over and over again. I've tried that before. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So let's say more about that. Why it doesn't. So let's just say you have a relationship with a parent. That's a great example. And you have forgiveness and release work to do from the past. And you're the one that's on the path to, enlightenment, so to speak. And they're not. And so when you want to fomp your shit on them and they're not ready or they're not in a conversation to hear.
Yep.
And also remember what I said at the beginning. Karen has her story of what happened. Her mom has her story of what happened. And then there's actually the facts of what occurred.
Yeah.
And so even if Karen shares her story with her mom has a different story. And how do I know? Because I did this with my own mother when she was alive. I had a story about some incidences with us, and that is not what she recalled at all. And I'm like, are you like, I was like, yeah, no, it's really interesting because she was adamant that was not what happened. And I was very adamant, and I had witnesses, by the way, that was what happened.
Yeah.
But,
I have the same with extended family that's still alive. I don't need to contact them.
Yep.
But I'm good with it. I'm still getting there, actually. Yeah. That's a lie. I'm still getting there with them.
Yeah.
My mother it would be 2 different books. Yeah. And that's okay. That is okay.
So talk about, how did you preserve like your relationship with her now while you're kind of doing this work? Like how did you not let whatever you had going on from the past about her like impact, when you had to go, because you see her a lot. So, how did you keep like the blame game away from her, or keep, you know what I'm saying?
I think when I forgive people, I don't want to say the word feel sorry because I don't want to say pity, but that's a generational trauma that has gone over and over again from many generations prior to me. So I just see
empathy,
it for
right? You have empathy for her? Is that?
Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for her, and I feel bad. So I don't think that she's like, I don't think it was malicious because it came from generations prior. And that, so that's where I come from, is like, I just kind of feel bad for her.
Yeah.
And when you feel bad, and then you take it for what it is, when I hear her talk about certain things, I'm like, I know where this is coming from, and it has nothing to do with me.
Right. Yeah. That's
Tracy,
her
stuff. Nothing to do with me.
Tracy has this with her mother too.
Yeah,
she has had to do a lot of work.
Cheated on me, and it was more. I've had other people cheat on me, but that was very traumatic in a lot of ways because of how I found out. I have a lot of forgiveness for him because I feel bad for him because he cheated on me because of his own deep inner child wounds. Yes. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, yeah, that was
actually getting religion over here.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is huge.
That's
it is
huge.
Yeah, he has a lot of wounds, and that had nothing to do with me. He was looking for something.
No, that's my first husband too, whom Tracy knows very well. He cheated on me, but honest to God, it had nothing to do with me.
Nope.
Which because there's some generational stuff there that I don't think will ever get fixed. I took
him back less than 9 months later, broke up with him again because I couldn't forgive him. So what Noelle was saying was, you can't say, oh, you're forgiven, and then throw it in someone's face again. Yeah, right. Then it's on you. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to forgive
That ruins a lot of relationships, by the way. A lot of marriages and a lot of relationships, not even just for a cheating thing, but like any kind of major thing where there's needing to be forgiveness and release.
Yeah.
People, when you do that work, you have to then you really have to let it go. You can't reserve the right to keep revisiting it going forward, because that destroys the fabric of your relationship with someone, and that can be anything that is even a work thing or, whatever. If you have a major rift with somebody and you do that forgive and release work, and then, 2 weeks later, you're, I'm sure you all know a couple that when they fight, they're bringing up everything from like, they go way back to the beginning. Remember the time? That should, honest to God, never be the case in anyone's relationship, because everything should be being dealt with in real time and released and let go. And if people were really doing that, there probably would be a lot less, breakups and rifts in relationships, because people would be communicating authentically in real time. It's one of the reasons why, I've pivoted, by the way, and for some of you that are in the group, you saw the video, but my work now is communication leadership and in operations for companies, but strategist, coach, and consultant. Why I do communications work and consulting with people and companies is because so much is lost because people don't know how to communicate.
My sister and I just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No.
My sister and I just went through something like that. We weren't talking for the longest time. I had a conversation with her adult daughter. She got involved. And like you said, her story, my story, my niece's story, and she didn't talk to me for the longest time. And then my mom's like, well, take the high road, be the bigger person. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, she has to see where she's, anyway. So thank you, Jesus, because it turned around and we released all of it. We talked about it. And I'm like, you said what? I didn't mean I didn't mean that when it just cleared everything. And that's a relationship that I want to keep. And so we worked through all of the ridiculousness that came up as a result of something that she wasn't even involved in, because she, she's a mom and that's her daughter and whatever. But it's just, again, when you're ready to look at your part and be accountable for it and make a change, it will happen. But people say, why does this keep happening to me? Well, because you let it, because you haven't done the work to look at what's your part that you keep creating this. Like,
and
this
that's a very important piece what you're saying, especially with this person that we both know that is, started this whole conversation, right? Is that you are always responsible for your part. I don't care what the situation was or is or whatever. And if you're not willing to look at where you are responsible, you can't do this work. If you just want to be a victim and you want to blame them and you want to say it's all their fault and they did it all, and like it, I'm sorry, but no, you do have some responsibility in there. Whether you orchestrated a breakdown of the thing, 5 years prior to whatever they did, like there's some place in there. And if you want to really grow, which is the only reason we're all here, if you really want to grow in your soul growth, you've got to look at this stuff. And sometimes it's ugly. Like when this person did what they did, like I had 5 years to visit how I brought it. And then I had, I saw how I brought it, because guess what? When I was in my 20s, I did that to somebody. I did that. And it got visited on me tenfold. What, I walked out and, and just left a situation where I was so broken when I was in my 20s. I mean, give me a break, right? But I sat in it because I teach it. So I had to sit in it with eyes wide open, like, okay, what are you trying to show me? And I got to see how I behaved. I used to, I come from an Italian family. There was a lot of use of words, right? That wasn't conscious, right? Like, oh, you this, and screaming at people and swearing at people. And, my mother's behavior with me. I mean, that was all. And it was like, oh, that doesn't matter. I just said that. No. And this person was a very literal, very well-educated human being and said, like, your words, he used to say to me all the time, your words matter. It matters that you said X, Y, and Z to me. That hurt me, Noelle. It mattered. And I would say, oh, come on, grow a pair, give me a break. And, when all that happened, I got to sit in that for like 3. I didn't date or do anything for 3 solid years because I was determined to figure out how I brought such a thing to my door, and how I created something like that. And the track record that I had, you know, before I had already had one divorce and then 2 divorces and then this major relationship. So it was like, come on, Noelle, what in you is so broken with these with the romantic relationship stuff? Like, come on. You know, my father left when I was, I get the typical stories, right? And so I did the work for 3 years. I did the work. And then, you know, and about the 4th year, you know, here comes John showing up after 20 years and boom, we're married, you know, pretty quickly because it's a long story.
You knew.
But,
yeah.
And it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I did the work for it though. It didn't just happen to me. Yeah. And there were days where it was, you know, I just cried. He left me. I can't believe this. Yep. How did I bring this? Why did this happen? I did all that. I'm not inhuman. I'm just more well-trained than most of you. Yep. So I sat and I looked and I took my responsibility, and it was painful and it was ugly. And I was not I did said some things that were not nice, and I felt really bad. And the best part of that is 5 years later, I got to have a conversation with this other person where I said, you were right. I did not realize how impactful my words were and some of the things that I said to you. And I am so, so, so truly sorry. Yeah. Still sorry. Yeah. For the way that I behaved, because I was broken. Yeah. And, you know, and we got to forgive each other. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. You know, so that's what's possible if the person is still alive and you do enough prayer work and enough intentional work, you know, you can have that happen. I want to say, so when I was in my 20s and 30s before I married, I always dated the Italian. I always dated the dark, handsome Italian. And my girlfriends would walk into a room and they'd say, oh, Tracy. They knew, oh, Tracy, there he is. I'm like, bang, you know, and of course it never worked out. And I didn't understand what's going on here. And I realized that these dark skinned, dark haired, you know, right? My dad is Irish, blonde, blue eyes with a beard and a mustache. And I chose unconsciously the opposite of my father, because I thought if I ended up with somebody that looked like my father, I would end up in a relationship like my mother and father who are divorced, and it was, you know, all this whatever. Yeah. And then and that's the day that I was like, oh my gosh, because of the work, like Noelle said, when you do the work and you look at it and you say, what is this? What is this? What is this? And then I realized, oh my gosh, I love my father. Why do I think that there's any relation to that? And that's when it changed. And I married a tall, light-skinned, blue-eyed, you know, and then onward. But you don't know when you're in it. Why does this keep happening? What's going on? Why does this keep showing up? Until you do the work and you look at it and you say, okay, I'm going to do it different. I got to do it different. This isn't working. Yeah. Like Mom used to say, a fish doesn't know he's in a fish bowl. Yes. You know, a fish is just in the bowl and thinks that's his world. He doesn't realize he's in a fish bowl. All right, we're at 9:05. Yeah. I hate to keep you guys long. So
well, there's really good comments.
So what we would ask you is to just look and see, you know, to just look and see for your own life right now. Like, where is a place where you could do this work and it could be impactful for you? You know, you don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to make an announcement. You don't, you know, if you do need some help, you know, you're welcome to email me and I can connect you with Karen or Tracy or myself, and we can try to help you work through. If you're in the group, you can, you know, throw stuff in there, and there's a bunch of us in there that will respond. But, you know, this is really our give. This is this show is my give back. So, you know, we're wanting to leave you with things that are impactful for you, to have the kind of life that you mean to have for yourself instead of the one that you're settling for. That's really our goal here with the Coffee Chat Show. So we just encourage you to look and see, are there places where you need to do this work? You know, right now I'm doing some of this work on some professional relationships, you know, that are that have reached a time to become something different. And so I've been doing a lot of, I've written out a lot of forgiveness and release affirmations. And it, and I'm working through that. And the work will never fail you. To do the work will never fail you. There's no way that it turns out badly for you to start looking at this stuff and doing the work. And if you want the affirmation specifically, we can help you with that as well. So you can just email me and we can give you a set. Catherine Ponder has some really good affirmations for forgiveness and release. So we'll see you next week. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.